Elite Dangerous, its days are numbered. The writing is on the wall. So, what alternative space games are out there for console players and PC players? Well, that's a question we're going to look at. But first, there's another question to answer. Is Elite Dangerous really a dead and dying game? Well, that will entirely depend upon where you sit. If you're a console player, then it's the end of days. No more future content for Elite Dangerous. Just critical patches and the servers remaining on. Effectively, this is what's known as maintenance mode. The PC version of the game, meanwhile, does have a future, at least if you've got the Odyssey client, which is going to continue to be receiving new content and new updates. At the end of the day, this is what is known as a shitty situation. For a big chunk of the player base, around about 20% based on public information who exclusively play on consoles, this is definitely not a good thing, not good news whatsoever. Some PC players, meanwhile, are going to have some different feelings about this, as obviously their version of the game does have a future. So I know what some of you out there are going to be thinking, this is all hyperbole. It's Obsidian going on a rant, it's me just bandwagoning. It's Obsidian saying Elite's dying again, ha ha. Regardless of your take though, regardless of whether you think there's good to come of this or bad to come of this, ultimately Elite is not in a great place right now. So whilst some people will try and put a positive spin on everything and say everyone's happy, unfortunately that really isn't the case. There's a whole lot of people out there that just aren't very happy at all. And yes, this is just a YouTube poll, not scientifically accurate, gives some trends, but I know what many of you actually feel about these. Nonetheless, it gives me at least some indication about what is going on with the thoughts and opinions within the Elite Dangerous community. And if you want a wider perspective of this, you need only look at other YouTube channels, as well as conversations across the internet. Let's take a look at this article on Eurogamer, for example. Not a flattering read towards Frontier by any means. Elite Dangerous cancels Odyssey expansion and all future content on consoles. Frontier Developments will no longer be releasing new content for its long-running space sim Elite Dangerous on Xbox and PlayStation, and development on the console version of its poorly received Odyssey expansion has ceased. The article briefly goes on to mention the situation with Odyssey and ultimately says, unfortunately for those that purchased it, the £30 expansion arrived in a shocking state when management opted to shove it out the door in May, plagued with performance issues, server outages and a heap of bugs. Odyssey rapidly accrued a mostly negative rating on Steam, and Frontier responded by delaying the Xbox and PlayStation versions indefinitely in order to prioritise the core PC experience for Elite Dangerous. There's a bunch of similar articles out there from other websites. Unfortunately, the current situation with Elite does mean rehashing old ground. We'd all like to move on, but it seems that Frontier just won't allow us to do that. Yes, they have released 10 updates for Odyssey on PC, in an 11th one on the way this week, but their extremely poor management and development practices of the game, not to mention their terrible communications in recent months, really just keep bringing these negative situations to light again and again. There's some people out there that would prefer to focus only on the positive aspects of the game. Personally, I'm not one of them. I'm firmly a guy that likes to sit in the middle and look at the broad overall situations, and that's the same reason you won't find me focusing exclusively on negative aspects as well. Yes, shades of grey. Not 50 of them. It would be great if there was just 50 shades of grey with Frontier, but unfortunately it's many and many more. Equally, there's many different opinions out there on the overall situation, although for the most part a lot of these seem to be slanted towards the negative. What you're seeing on screen right here is a YouTube poll. We all know what everyone thinks about those. Far from scientific, but they do give a bit of a trend, at least in relation to general current thinking. But that said, quite rightly, opinions are always different out there. There's a whole wide range of them, something I don't usually do on this website, on this channel rather. Let's take a look at a few comments from my recent videos, and I will keep the names out of it, but I think this is entirely fair to do because these videos shouldn't just be about what I think and what I have to say. It's entirely worth taking a look at other people's opinions as well. It isn't only disappointment, but there is a level of deceit as well. It should be noted that this decision to abandon development on consoles was not made overnight. This decision has been known for months, perhaps as far as 6 or 7 months. I will even go as far as saying that I doubt FF devs have even been concerned or worried about Odyssey on consoles, even though they would say otherwise, simply because they already knew that consoles were to be rated obsolete. The brutally honest truth is that for the past year, Frontier have strung along console players. These console players were waiting in vain, waiting for Odyssey DLC, some even upgrading to Xbox Series X and the PS5, still dedicated to playing Elite Dangerous, still buying their merchandise, still buying the game as a whole, all while Frontier knew for months that they would be cutting off console players in the future. Where do we draw the line and say enough? So just to be clear, this is of course someone's opinion. It's not based on fact, but based purely upon their observations as they see it. And those observations, in part at least, will be based on Frontier's communication policy. So whether you agree or disagree with that particular comment, there's something to be said for Frontier themselves and their communications having an impact on the player's perception of what is going on with the game. 95% of games just chuck out the game and leave you to it. Elite Dangerous has worked to keep it going for years. Since I backed the Kickstarter, I paid the initial backing, then the Xbox version, then the Horizons and Fleet Carrier update. For all I paid for it, I have had a fantastic experience, mainly on Xbox to be honest. I think Frontier should be given a break to work on the future of the game without being moaned at, lack of support, etc., when most people have only paid 40 or 50 quid. I will continue to play the game as long as I enjoy it. I do, so I will. Thanks to the community for the videos, but biggest thanks to David Braben and Frontier. I think there's something to be said for paying £30, £40, whatever, for a game and it giving you many years of quality entertainment. For people who purchased the game back during the Kickstarter, they would have got access perhaps in 2013, maybe 2014, depending on when how much they paid. So yeah, we're talking of 7 to 8 years of entertainment for the price of entry. So yeah, I can relate to that comment. I think it also kind of backs up my earlier observation about Frontier's communication policy. As the commenter says, I think Frontier should be given a break to work on future of the game without being moaned at for a lack of support, etc. So yeah, fair observation, but it really wouldn't happen. People would complain far less if Frontier had a bit more of an open book when it comes to communications. What is going on there? Yes, we've got a new forum post from Frontier, which I touched on just earlier and we'll have a closer look at in just a bit. But ultimately, these ongoing, regular blackouts of information aren't doing anyone any favours at all, least of all Frontier. Now, if you want a bit more of a deep dive into the situation, into the current situation with Elite Dangerous, I can recommend 2 different videos. We've got this one here from Commander Exorcist. It's a 20-minute discussion on where Elite Dangerous is, where it's been, where it's heading, as well as Commander Exorcist's take on the whole thing. There's also a 1-hour podcast here with Space Tomato, who's having a discussion with Down to Earth Astronomy. Both fantastic guys, well worth a listen to this one. So both videos have a very good insight on what's going on with Elite. People's takes are very balanced, so I really do recommend you go and check them out. Both links can be found in the video description below. So, what's new with Elite Dangerous? Well, as I'm recording this video, Frontier community team have posted a new update to the official forum. So let's take a very quick look. Not too much there in the way of future content for Elite Dangerous other than Update 11, but nonetheless it bears taking a bit of a look at. And do keep in mind that this is the first community post of any substance that has been posted this year. What have we got then? Frontier confirming that Odyssey Update 11 is on schedule for this week. That's after being delayed a little bit from last week. They still don't give an exact day, but they're saying they're planning on rolling out the update early this week. They're just undertaking those final checks again. So this update will bring Fleet Carrier interiors to the game. So for those players who have access to Fleet Carriers, it means they're able to haul around their home base. That's pretty much anywhere across the entire galaxy. Frontier also mentioned that there's going to be a new type of mission within the Update 11 alongside another wave of fixes. After that, Frontier move on to discussions of the new streams, their live streams. They're going to return. These have been relaxed. These have basically disappeared for the entirety of this year. They're going to bring them back, a single live stream, 1 per week at the time of 1600 UTC every Thursday. So it's going to be less streams, but they're going to be longer. Frontier also touch on the upcoming community event calendar. This will effectively allow players to announce publicly their in-game communities and community events to essentially promote them. A few other little bits and pieces there as well. So The full post is linked in the video description if you want to go and check it out all for yourself. I don't think you need me to read each of those out for you. Finally then, before we come to an end of this video, I opened the video with discussing alternative space games, and I know some of you out there are certainly going to want to be thinking about that. Now, unfortunately, the downside, the sad news about all of this is there's not a huge amount in the way of games similar to Elite Dangerous, especially not on consoles. If you're on PC and looking for alternatives, there is Star Citizen. I know people out there are not going to appreciate me recommending that, but it is a game, it is playable, regardless of its state. Maybe it crashes a lot, well, we know it crashes a lot, there's a lot of bugs, but you can go out there and play it, and when it comes down to it, it's perhaps the closest thing out there to Elite Dangerous right now. The next really obvious recommendation is No Man's Sky, and I'm pretty sure most people would have at least considered taking a look at that. But yeah, Hello Games have done a fantastic job with this over the recent years. I really do have a lot of respect for them with the massive amount of work and change that they put into No Man's Sky over the past few years. Now, if you're looking elsewhere, you're going to have a bit of an easier time if you're on Xbox and if you're on a PlayStation. Xbox does have access to Space Engineers. Now, this is a really popular sandbox building type space game. Build your own spaceships, build your own stations, you've got access to planetary surfaces and all sorts of things. Pretty popular game, in fact they've sold over 4 million copies at this point. It's not a game I play myself, unfortunately, but that's not because I don't want to, it's simply due to a lack of time. In fact, I'm regularly getting recommended this one, especially by Old Duck, who keeps telling me to play this over and over, and hopefully at one point I'll get round to getting back into it. I did play this many years ago, actually. Either way, if you're on Xbox or if you're on PC, don't think it's on PlayStation, but yeah, it's certainly worth taking a look at. Meanwhile, if you want a slightly older space game, you can take a look at Everspace. This is a quality roguelike shooter. This is available on both PC and consoles. If you want something a bit more open world, perhaps one of the best space shooters out there is Everspace 2. This is still in early development, but it is available on PC. In fact, I recommend this above all the other games I've recommended so far. Very, very good. Hopefully, I do believe it will be coming to consoles at some point after the final release, so yeah, keep your eye out for that. So that's my recommendations out the way. What I'd really like to know is for those of you on console or perhaps PC who are now moving away from Elite Dangerous, what game are you choosing to play? Are there any other space games out there that you're taking a look at? Alternatively, are you perhaps moving towards a simulation such as Microsoft Flight Simulator or DCS World, or perhaps another total different branch of game, or a different genre altogether? I'm going to pin a comment down below, so do take a look where you can answer this particular question. I'd love to hear from you. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.